Okay, so here we are on video number 7 and making this paddle. And I thought I would start with making the handle today. So I've come up with the handle design that I like. And in most cases, the handle design should be one that feels comfortable in your hand. So this is the one that I've kind of come up with over the years, and I really like it. So I've traced it on top of my handle, and I've employed a method that I like to use where I drill a hole that represents the inside of this portion of the pattern. And that means I don't have to cut that with the bandsaw, because the hole that I've drilled gives me a really nice round shape. So I'm all set to just cut out the outside of the shape, and that's a very simple process. Those inside corners are a little bit more of a challenge. So there you see we've cut out the handle for the most part. Now I'll shape that with my spoke shave and a rasp, which is basically a fancy word for a woodworking file. So now what I want to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to work on the shaft, and I'm going to work on this portion right here, and I might get to this portion up top, but we'll see how things go. So you'll notice that there's a pencil line down the center of the shaft, and that should be on both sides, and there's a center line down the edge of the shaft, and I've got that on both sides also. So I'm going to again think of the shaft as if it's in 4 quadrants. This little portion here, I'll work on that separately from this portion here, and then I'll flip the paddle over and I'll work on this corner to round that off, and then I'll also round this portion off. So I've got 4 quadrants that I'm going to work on, and at some point I am going to taper this portion of the paddle just a little bit. Okay, so I used to have a really nice device called a shaving horse, but I lost that when my previous shop burned down. So I don't have that anymore, and that was an awesome tool for holding the paddle while I was shaping with the spoke shave. But they say necessity is the mother of invention, so I come up with this little block of wood that I clamped to the bottom of my workbench, and I've got this stool here, so I'm going to just put my paddle down like that, and I'm going to sit on the blade, and that should clamp it in place. And then I'm going to be able to work on these 2 quadrants of the shaft, and I'll move the paddle down as I want to move up the shaft, and I should be able to do all right. So again, I'm going to continue to change the rotation or the position of the spoke shave so that I don't get any flat spots. doesn't take long to round that off. And then eventually it's going to come down to how does it feel in your hand. I still got more to work on this corner and that corner because I can feel that biting me right there and there. But the other side, that feels fairly round. So I'm pretty happy with this side. That side still needs more work. So the process that I'm going to do now on the bandsaw is I'm going to try to take a little bit of wood off of both sides of, we'll say, the front and the back of the shaft near the top. It just adds a little bit of style, which I think is rather nice. So I'm going to have to raise the guide post, and while I'm cutting this portion here, it's definitely going to be a quarter or higher than a quarter of an inch above my work, but it's pretty much the only way I can go about doing this. So let's see here. So if you were ever going to do this at the school, you would always have me present in this situation because it is a little bit tricky and it might be the type of operation that you have me do for you. If you're not one of my students and you're doing this on your own, I take no responsibility for what might happen. Okay, so as you can see, when I cut, I tried to stay on the waist side of the lines, and I'll be able to do some shaping to make that nice and round and contoured. And I'm also going to have to redraw my line up the center of the shaft. There's still a few spots where I feel like there's a few corners, but I'm going to take those off, I think, with the palm sander because it's a little bit more gradual and it'll give me an opportunity to feel as I'm going. Yesterday when we were talking about the blade, I said that my hand could feel what my eye couldn't see. So I'm just going to show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to take this piece of cardboard and go like this with a pencil. And now I'm just going to kind of stick my fingers in these two little holes that I've made. Now you can see all of the ridges that my hand can feel, but you couldn't see before. There's all sorts of little ridges here that you wouldn't really be able to see, but now that I've got this pencil lead highlighting those high spots, you can really see them. And it's happened on both sides. I did this side earlier just to make sure that my paper trick would work, but that will all be taken off with the sander, which we'll talk about that tomorrow.